The dynamic of my childhood home was structured exactly like an overcrowded emergency room triage center. Whoever screamed the loudest or bled the most received every ounce of available resources, attention, and parental sympathy. My older sister spent her entire life perfecting the art of the loudest scream, ensuring she remained the absolute center of our family orbit. I realized the cruel math of this arrangement when I was only 7 years old, sitting alone on a cold stage after a school recital that absolutely no one from my family bothered to attend. My parents never resorted to physical violence, providing me with basic food, clothing, and shelter throughout my upbringing. However, within our household, being perfectly fine was not considered an emotional state, but rather a demanding full-time job assignment. The lone person who truly understood this silent arrangement was my father, who would occasionally offer a sympathetic look across the dinner table. When I turned 15, he quietly promised me that my 18th birthday would be entirely my own special day, a rare vow I buried deep in my heart. By the time my sister turned 21, she had already cycled through and abandoned multiple college programs due to various manufactured personal crises. My mother handled each separate failure like a specialized medical diagnosis, rewriting my sister's constant lack of discipline as emotional fragility. They actively conditioned her to believe she was far too delicate for the real world, turning her endless neediness into a permanent identity. Meanwhile, my personal role was solidified as the resilient, invisible daughter who required absolutely nothing from anyone to survive. My true salvation came from working long weekend hours at a local plant greenhouse owned by a stern woman named Clara. Clara paid me in honest wages and tough, practical life lessons, teaching me how to manage a massive seed room entirely on my own. By the time autumn arrived, I had successfully accumulated over $9,000 from 3 years of dedicated, grueling manual labor. Because I was still a minor, the bank required my mother's co-signature on the account, a detail she conveniently managed to delay month after month. My planned 18th birthday celebration was incredibly modest, consisting of a simple outdoor dinner in my grandmother's backyard with a few close relatives. I had even saved up enough to order a custom chocolate sheet cake with my name beautifully written in bright yellow icing. Around that exact time, my sister suddenly announced she needed a massive financial deposit for a brand new design program in a neighboring city. The familiar heavy silence returned to our kitchen, a subtle shift that always signaled family funds were about to change direction yet again. Just 4 days before my actual birthday, my sister returned home in the middle of the night, weeping loudly about her latest academic failure. The following morning, my mother entered my bedroom holding 2 mugs of hot cocoa, her face carefully arranged into an expression of false sympathy. She gently explained that hosting a celebration for me right now would simply rub salt into my sister's fresh emotional wounds. When I directly asked when my turn would finally arrive, my mother simply sighed and told me not to be so dramatic. The true breaking point arrived when the local bakery called my phone to casually confirm a few recent changes to my cake order. My parents had completely scraped my name off the bakery ticket and replaced it with a message welcoming my sister back home. They had essentially harvested my entire birthday celebration for parts, transforming my special milestone into a comforting welcome home party for her. I quietly hung up the telephone, moved upstairs to my bedroom, and calmly packed my life into 2 simple duffel bags. I moved into the drafty loft right above Clara's seed room that very night, officially resigning from my role as the family's pillar of strength. When I went to the bank the following Monday to finally separate my money, the teller informed me the balance was practically empty. My mother had legally withdrawn $8,500 of my hard-earned savings to fund the brief design program my sister just abandoned. When I confronted her, she casually explained that family money always goes directly where it is most desperately needed. My mother immediately spun a web of malicious lies to the rest of the family, painting me as a selfish, dramatic villain. I refused to waste my precious energy arguing with her public narrative, choosing instead to let my silent hard work speak for itself. That October, my grandmother drove over to the greenhouse and handed me a cardboard box filled with precious, rare heirloom flower bulbs. She told me to plant them somewhere beautiful where people would be forced to look at them, offering me the first real kindness I had felt in months. I spent the brutal winter working grueling double shifts at the greenhouse and a local diner to rebuild my stolen savings from scratch. In January, Clara recognized my fierce determination and offered me a formal binding business lease on 2 acres of her back field. I poured every single dollar I possessed into seeds, soil tops, and essential farming equipment, completely bypassing my planned college enrollment. I knew deep down that I could never truly build a meaningful future with one foot still stuck inside my toxic childhood home. By the early summer, my rows of vibrant flowers were thriving, and I began selling beautiful handmade bouquets at the crowded town market. I proudly nailed up a hand-painted wooden sign that read Vance Blooms, putting my real name out in public for everyone to see. Word traveled fast in our small community, and soon prominent church members were openly praising the impressive business I had built completely alone. My mother eventually sent a short, detached text message regarding my market success, using a patronizing tone that I chose to ignore. The local newspaper eventually caught wind of my unique flower farm and published a massive front-page feature story about my journey. The article featured a striking photograph of me standing proudly amid my crimson flowers, looking entirely secure in my own skin. This public exposure completely shattered my mother's false narrative about my departure, forcing the entire town to see the real truth. My mother called me in an absolute panic, furiously accusing me of exposing our private family business to the judgmental public. A few weeks later, my grandmother demanded that her landmark 80th birthday celebration be held directly inside my beautiful, flourishing flower field. My mother desperately tried to salvage her public image by calling to ask if we could pitch the farm as a joint family project. She even shamelessly suggested that my sister could easily manage the event planning for my business because she desperately needed a professional win. I calmly refused her manipulative request, stating that while they were welcome as guests, my business belonged entirely to me. On the afternoon of the party, over 30 relatives walked into my vibrant field, completely stunned by the stunning landscape I had created. During the celebratory toasts, my grandmother proudly announced she was officially naming her signature crimson flower strain after me and my farm. Unable to handle the attention shifting away, my mother stood up and loudly announced that my sister was officially joining the business. The crowd clapped quite awkwardly, sensing the immense tension radiating across the long dinner tables. I looked directly at my mother and quietly stated that her public announcement was completely false and would never actually happen. My sister suddenly let out a bitter, broken laugh, completely shattering the remaining fragile layers of our family's long-standing fiction. She furiously screamed that my parents had stolen my entire life savings and cancelled my 18th birthday just to comfort her. In a chaotic fit of tears, my sister accidentally knocked a massive metal bucket of crimson flowers directly onto the green grass. My mother knelt in the damp grass, desperately begging me to lie to the relatives to keep our broken family together. She promised I could finally come back home to Sunday dinners if I simply handed over a portion of my business. I looked down at her and calmly stated that I had already learned how to be perfectly fine on my own. I refused to buy my seat back at her table using the currency of lies, watching silently as she walked out. Our fractured family split completely down the middle after that fateful afternoon, and my mother and I have not spoken a single word since. My father quietly sends me short, simple letters every month, acknowledging his deep regret for staying silent for so many years. My sister eventually found a low-level job at a distant garden center, though we still maintain a heavy, unresolved distance between us. I focus my energy on running my successful farm and mentoring young, quiet girls who are struggling to find their own voices. Ultimately, I finally realized that the costly love you are forced to earn by constantly disappearing is not true love at all. It is merely a form of emotional rent you pay to people who view you as a convenient asset rather than family. The moment you finally stop paying that rent, you discover who truly loves you for exactly who you are.